people of YouTube. Welcome back to Taji's World of Books. And I'm here today to do, so the last video I did, which I'll link down below, was my top series of 2020. I'm late on the game, I know. But today, as I had said before, I noticed when I was going through the series that I had a lot of standalones as well that I wanted to recommend. So I wanted to split them out and do my top series and then do my top standalones. So today is my top standalones. And so I'm not going to go into great detail, as I've said before. I'm just going to give you a brief synopsis of these books, and I highly recommend them. I went through and really considered the ones that I felt were the absolute top that stood out for the year. Okay, to start, and they are in no particular order. To start off with, this is Pam Godwin's Dark Notes. Again, this was one of my first forays into dark romance, and this book covers a lot of different tropes. It covers age gaps. It covers student-teacher. You got to pay attention to trigger warnings because there are trigger warnings in this book. It is the story of, and I don't remember what her name is. Whatever her name is, she she comes from a very difficult home. There is abuse in her home, and she is not respected. Her brother is supposed to take care of her. He doesn't. He makes her a victim to his friends. And the teacher that is in this story sees that she has lots of potential and she has opportunities to become better than what she is, and he sees that in her, but he's also highly, highly attracted to her. And so it's their story of him really saving her. There also is an element of BDSM in here, but this is one of the first times that I have ever read a story where BDSM is used to heal somebody and to give someone the ability to consent to things that are happening within their body and to their body, and they get to call the shots as opposed to things happening to them. So great representation of BDSM, great representation of age gap. I loved how the story ended. I can't speak highly enough of this. I really want to get into Pam Godwin's back list of books because she did such a great job with this. An amazing, amazing story. Okay, this book is a breakout novel by this particular author, K.M. Sparza. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but I absolutely love this story. This story covers age gap. It covers love, sex, wealth, debt, slavery. Basically, it's a futuristic society in which your family carries the debt from all of the previous generations, and there is no way to work off that debt or pay that back. Sometimes the debt becomes so high. So what people do is they become a docile. And when you become a docile, it means there are different types of docile. But this particular book covers a sexual docile. And what happens when you go into that situation, they give you this medicine that you take, and the medicine makes you docile, and it makes you forget, and it makes you not recall what's happening to you. But this particular character says, I don't want to do that. I actually want to participate in knowing what's happening, and I want to remember what's happening. And so his master basically says, okay, then I'm going to train you into becoming a submissive. And wow, the story is powerful. You find yourself, despite everything that's happening, you're rooting for them. You want them to have a happily ever after, but you feel torn because you're like, how can I think that when you've basically manipulated and turned this person into a slave, and look at what you've done. But it's also the story of redemption, and it's also the story of a broken system of capitalism and what that does to people. And this author did amazing for their first novel, or their first time putting out something. This book is absolutely, and I sort of felt like, should I put this on here and should I feel the way that I do about it? But I absolutely do. This is a great story. Please check it out. Okay, so for those of you that have tuned in previously, know that I cannot speak more highly of Carian. I absolutely love her. I've read everything that she has written, and I have said whatever she writes, I am going to buy it and read it. And this story is, so it should not be surprised that she is on my list. And this story is no exception. No Tomorrow is the story of Blue and his significant other, and I never remember people's names, but I remember Blue. And it's the story of, he's a homeless musician. They find each other in the park and they embark on this epic love story that spans decades, and it spans over years. They lose touch, something happens, they lose touch with one another. She discovers that she hears him on the radio, he's now a famous musician, and it's them trying to figure it out and find out what happened. And it's the story of mental illness. It's the story, there's trigger warnings. Check out the trigger warnings in this, but this is, you're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry, you're gonna feel torn, you're gonna be rooting for them, but at the same time feeling like, should they be going in separate directions? Are they healthy for one another? This story is one of the best stories that I have ever read that covers, and I love that she writes a chapter in here where the mental illness has its own voice, and you can hear what the mental illness is doing to him. And it is very, very powerful, because for those of you who have ever suffered from depression or anxiety or OCD, know that those conditions take on their own voice, and it's powerful. She does a great job, so please check out this story as well. Next is Transcendence, and Transcendence is by Shay. I absolutely love this story. This is a time travel story in which you find that he is living by himself, and his name is Ed. And Ed is living by himself because a tragedy has happened. He's a prehistoric, he's a caveman. He's living by himself because a tragedy has happened and he has lost his group, and he is alone and isolated. And one day he finds in his traps that he has, that a girl is in the traps, and he can't understand her. They can't communicate. You as the reader start to understand. It's all written from Ed's point of view. You as the reader start to understand that she is likely from the future, and she tries to communicate with him. They can't communicate, and it's basically their story to figure out how to get along. He is fixated on, he's clearly never been with a woman before. He wants to make her happy. He's so sweet. He's so swoony. It just is a beautiful story of perseverance and figuring it out. And I can't speak highly enough about it. And you are able to figure out what's going on and what she's saying based on how he responds. And he cares so much for her, and he just wants to make her happy, and he just wants to do the right thing. And there's one story in there where she hits him on the nose because he does something bad, and he just feels like he's so shamed, and he puts his head down, and you just feel for him so much because he just wants to do the right thing. But it's a very swoony and beautiful story, so check that one out. This is Controversial, my next one, and Webster. And it technically is not a standalone because there is a second book called Free, and that's about another couple in this story. But I'm sorry, I got the wrong book. I pulled Free and I meant to pull Wild. So I apologize about that. But Wild by Webster is a story. There's a lot of trigger warnings in there. It's a forbidden romance. It's an age gap. So check out the trigger warnings on that story. But again, I just absolutely loved it. If you love dark romances, if you like forbidden stories, if you like age gaps, if you like tragedy and against all odds, people being together when they're not supposed to be, but then there's twists and turns, do not give up on the story. Even if you feel like this book is not for me. This is, I don't know what is going on in here. There's a lot of tragedy and this shouldn't be happening. Stick with it, because the end of the book brings it all together for you, and you will love Wild as much as I do. So sorry, Free, this is the second book to that. So Wild. This book, if you guys haven't heard about this book, it's all over BookTube. Everybody has talked about it. A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This book will tear your heart out, okay? I couldn't stop thinking about it. I sobbed at the end of this book, and I thought about it and thought about it, and I'm still thinking about it. This story has lots of trigger warnings, mental health issues, abuse, childhood abuse, self-harm, self-injury. Jude in this story, the fact that he is able to develop a network of friends of 4 guys that he becomes really close with, how he's even able to develop those relationships is beyond me, because of the amount of trauma that he experienced and he's gone through is astounding. You just root for him, and you just want him to be happy, and you just want him to have a normal, healthy life. And one thing after another is happening to Jude, and your heart breaks, but you're in it with them. And there's so much about perseverance and the human condition and friendship and love and unconditional regard and respect, and everything is wrapped up in this story. And it will tear your heart out, but it is worth the read. It is beautiful and astounding, and you really, really should read it. It's one of those things where I don't even know if I'm going to read it. I might, but because it's such a heavy, heavy story, but well worth it. Okay, down to my last 2. It ends with us, Colleen Hoover. So this is a story. The trigger warnings are domestic violence, abuse, and it is a bit of a love triangle in that Lily meets Ryle, and Ryle is everything that Lily ever could dream of having in a partner until he's not. There is also the triangle is that a childhood friend comes back into play, and it's the story of forgiveness and how you forgive and what you're willing to do for your children, and whether you stay in a situation or get out of a situation, and what does that mean and how do you do that, and you know, a testament of your soul and who you are and who you want to be and who you want your children to see you as. And I also think that what brings this story together, really together, is once you read it and then you read at the end the author's notes from Colleen Hoover, which contains some spoilers, so read it afterwards. That is what just brought this all together for me and just made this story poignant and powerful and a necessary story to tell for all women to read as they are embarking upon, you know, dating and figuring out long-term partners and long-term relationships and who they want to be in those. So, great story. And last but not least, The Unrequited by Saffron Kent. I absolutely love this story. It's a student-teacher relationship. It's also the story of obsession and mental illness and what that means. It's also the story of redemption and forgiveness, and Layla, and it's Layla and Thomas's story, and it's about trust, it's about honesty. There is a bit of triangle in there and what that means for both of them, but how she brings it through, because you feel like there's going to be no redemption in terms of how they're going to figure this out, but they ultimately do. The story needs to be told. It's a beautiful, beautiful story of, you know, relationships, and it's got a lot of cool, sexy time in here as well. And so it's steamy, it's romantic, and you want them to figure it out, but at the same time you want them to be honest, and you want them to figure out their mental health issues. And again, I think that this story needs to be told, and Saffron did a great job with it. I was really pleased, and I think you should check it out. So that is all I have for you today. Please like and subscribe, and remember, I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I hope to see you at our next video. So until then, take care.